Ethiopia has pushed the switch on Africa's largest hydroelectric dam, marking a historic milestone in the continent's energy ambitions and reigniting tensions along the Nile. At the official inauguration of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed pledged the project would not disrupt water flows to Egypt and Sudan. But after years of stalled talks and deep mistrust, his words may not be enough to calm fears downstream. NTV's Ashley Atieno with that story.
On the banks of the Blue Nile, a new chapter begins, not just for Ethiopia, but for the entire Horn of Africa. Water now surges through the turbines of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, or GERD, the crown jewel of Ethiopia's energy ambitions and the continent's largest hydroelectricity facility. Built at a cost of $5 billion, the dam now reaches full generating capacity, 5,150 megawatts, enough to power homes, factories and futures across East Africa. But the moment is as political as it is technical. Standing before a gathering of regional leaders and citizens, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed directly addressed the two nations most concerned, Egypt and Sudan.
To our brothers in the downstream, to our Nubian Sudan brothers, and to Misri Egypt brothers, who are worried out of innocent concerns, Ethiopia built the Renaissance Dam to prosper and to enlighten the region, never to hurt its brothers. I would like to confirm to you in front of the Ethiopian people that we will never retain your fair share of the water at any point.
Ethiopia sees the dam not just as infrastructure but as destiny, a unifying national project funded in part by citizens through bonds and donations. But for Egypt, where the Nile provides more than 90% of fresh water needs, and for Sudan, the GERD has long been seen as a looming threat, a unilateral act on a shared lifeline. Still, Ethiopia pushed forward. The final reservoir filling was completed in 2023, despite years of diplomatic stalemate. Independent assessments show no major disruptions downstream for now, helped by cautious water management and above-average rainfall. Kenya, South Sudan, Somalia all see opportunity. With power-hungry economies and development goals to meet, the GERD's surplus electricity could be a regional game changer.
We are ready to sign a power purchase agreement so that we can offtake some of the power from this important dam. Reliability is especially critical for special economic zones, industrial parks, ICT hubs, and agro-processing facilities, all of which require consistent and affordable power to drive Kenya's development agenda.
But as water flows freely through the turbines, political tension still trickles. No binding legal agreement has been reached. Trust remains fragile and downstream doubts persist. Ashley Atieno, NTV.
How are you?
Now, after 14 years of construction, Ethiopia has officially inaugurated a controversial mega dam built over the River Nile. The ceremony was broadcast live on TV. Africa's largest hydroelectric project has a capacity to produce more than 5,000 megawatts of power. The government in Addis Ababa says the project on the Blue Nile will provide electricity to millions of people across the region, not just in Ethiopia. The dam will be Africa's largest hydroelectric plant, but the dam has also been at the centre of a diplomatic row between Sudan and Egypt, who both fear their essential water supplies could be affected. Kalkidan Yipaltal reports from Addis Ababa.
Ethiopia's capital and biggest city, Addis Ababa, is full of excitement as a $4 billion mega dam over the Blue Nile reaches the finish line after 14 years. For a country scarred by a devastating civil war that ended just 3 years ago and continues to face unrest, the project, officially known as the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, generates a rare sense of unity for the majority of the people. Hundreds of millions of dollars have been collected from the public through donations and the sale of government-issued bonds. Getenesh and Germesa are now hoping to have access to electricity. The dam began generating power to a small extent 3 years ago, and it's expected to operate with full capacity soon. Power generated from the hydroelectric plant is expected to feed into the national grid. But Ethiopia still needs to expand its networks to reach areas without electricity. That will be the next step.
For 54% of our people, they have access to electricity.
They do have access?
They do have access. Yeah. So we can take 46% is in deficit. That is what we want to reduce now in the coming 5 years. Our intention is by 2030, at least more than 90% of our nation should get access to electricity. That is how we are working upon that.
Besides providing households with electricity, Ethiopia aims to become an economic powerhouse in the Horn of Africa region, for which generating massive amounts of power could be important. The hydropower project is also expected to boost electricity exports to regional neighbors, but it has created issues for countries downstream. Over the years, there have been several rounds of talks among Ethiopia, Sudan, and Egypt to address issues raised around the building of this hydroelectric dam. However, none of these efforts have been successful, and a binding agreement has not been signed. Accusations continue to be traded, and relations remain tense. Sudan and Egypt fear the dam could affect water levels on the Nile, particularly in times of drought, something Ethiopia denies. In a recent joint statement, the two countries said the dam will continue to create a threat to their water supplies. Officials in Addis Ababa say the costs of the construction were covered by the government and contributions from the public. Now, the country is set to generate a massive source of income in addition to providing power to millions of its citizens. Kalkidan Ibeltal, BBC News, Southern Ethiopia.
Well, Africa's largest hydroelectric project, the Grand Renaissance Dam in Ethiopia, has been inaugurated. The dam is a massive engineering project that has been under construction for over a decade. Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed and regional leaders attended the inauguration ceremony. The dam is meant to double Ethiopia's electricity output and help supply power to millions. The dam has long been controversial, facing pushback from Ethiopia's neighbours along the Blue Nile River. It promises an energy revolution for the country, but for more than a decade it has also been a source of deep tensions with nearby Egypt and Sudan, which are downstream from Ethiopia, and fear the negative consequences from the mega dam.
Ethiopia's dam is a project of historic proportions. At more than 145 metres high and stretching nearly 2 kilometres across the Blue Nile River, it's not just Africa's largest hydroelectric dam, it's one of the biggest in the world. The government promised it would transform the economy and the lives of the population.
What we are essentially doing is to meet our electricity demands from one of the cleanest sources of energy. We cannot afford to continue keeping more than 65 million of our people in the dark.
But since its conception and the start of construction in 2011, it has been dogged by controversy. Egypt and Sudan both rejected an initial deal to start building the dam over fears that it would threaten their water supplies. Egypt, for one, depends on the Nile for 97% of its water and has repeatedly described the dam as an existential threat. Despite efforts over the last decade to defuse tensions, Egypt's president has always been clear about the stakes.
You will develop and grow, and I am with you. But beware that in Egypt, the people live only on the water that comes from this river.
Over the last 5 years, Ethiopia has begun filling the dam despite the lack of agreement with its downstream neighbours. And in 2022, for the first time, started generating electricity. The Prime Minister said the dam would eventually provide power for the estimated 45% of Ethiopians currently with no access to electricity, and also in future allow the country to become Africa's biggest exporter of energy. He also tried once again to reassure Ethiopia's neighbours.
As you can see, this water will generate energy, while flowing as it previously flowed to Sudan and Egypt.
For many in Ethiopia, the dam has also become a source of national pride, especially as it was reportedly financed largely by Ethiopia itself, without significant outside funding. Yet despite the upside for Ethiopians, critics fear the tensions, with Egypt in particular, could spill over into something bigger.
Well, Moses Crispus Okello is a senior researcher at the Institute for Security Studies in Addis Ababa. His work focuses on conflict resolution and regional security. Welcome to DW. Before we dive into the problems the dam has caused, let's first recognise what this mega project means, if we could. How significant is it for Ethiopia?
Thanks for having me. For Ethiopia, this is a monumental project. It's a dam that not only promises to transform the lives of approximately 120 million people, it's a dam that also holds a great significance symbolically, in the sense that it was domestically funded. So the psychological impact of this undertaking alone is grave. Throughout the whole week, leading up to today, the news in Ethiopia has really been about this dam. I mean, this just demonstrates the extent to which the dam will not only change Ethiopia's profile economically, but also the extent to which it is able to galvanize the population in the country politically. So this is, for Ethiopia, indeed a history-changing moment. You could say that between today on September 9th, 2025, there was an Ethiopia before and an Ethiopia after.
Moses, we've heard in that report that the dam has raised concerns about water security for Ethiopia's neighbours, Sudan and Egypt. How justified are these concerns?
Yes, indeed. From the very beginning of the construction of this dam, water security for Egypt, primarily and secondarily Sudan, have been a major concern. Egypt, that as you correctly say, depends on the Nile for 90% or so of its freshwater sources, believes that the dam will reduce the amount of flow of water that goes down to Cairo and further on to Alexandria. So this is a big concern for Egypt. But Egypt also has another concern in the sense that the Nile also is a symbolic natural resource that politically holds the country together. So the Nile is both a source of water and also a source of identity for Egypt. For Sudan, on the other hand, Sudan floods every year about May to September timeframe, and the Nile, the GERD, therefore, has two different meanings for them. On the one hand, there's a belief that it might help control the flooding in Khartoum, but on the other, there is a fear that should the GERD have a fault of any sort, then Khartoum will be flooding. So both Egypt have concerns. Ethiopia has attempted to assuage these concerns, arguing that the engineering fit that the GERD is has safeguards that are able to manage the flow of water. So whether that is true indeed is something that has to be seen going forward. But all the sides in this entanglement believe in their positions, and that's where the tensions and the disagreement between Egypt, Sudan, and Ethiopia come from.
Yeah, part of your field of expertise is conflict resolution. I wonder how much does historical mistrust and regional politics affect negotiations and the viewpoints of what this dam's going to bring?
Yeah, I mean, the disagreements over the construction of the dam have never changed. from 2011 when the first stone was put on the ground to date. So 15 years down the road, and we're still arguing about the same thing, whether the dam will reduce the water flow, or whether the dam should be used by another country for its economic benefits. So this is not one of those solutions that those problems that are easy to address. So today the dam has been complete. It's a fait accompli, but the issues remain. I do not, in my mind, foresee Ethiopia compromising on the core operation of the dam, which is now what both Khartoum and Cairo are demanding. They believe that now is a national, is a sovereign issue that cannot be compromised on. So going forward, our belief is that these three countries will continue disagreeing about this dam, and perhaps also fueled by other concerns, geopolitical as well as hegemony concerns, that will then carry them for years on end.
Ethiopia is set to inaugurate Africa's biggest hydroelectric dam. The Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam will power homes and industries across East Africa, but is sparking tensions with Egypt and Sudan over the flow of the River Nile. For more, our chief Africa correspondent Jennifer Zabazaja joins us from Johannesburg. I mean, Jennifer, this has been 14 years in the making, finally being inaugurated. Talk to us about the significance of this dam, perhaps before we talk about some of the controversies surrounding it.
Exactly, Jumana. Today is really the culmination of a years-long push, as you were just alluding to there. 14 years of delays. There's been disputes, even potentially war threats, and reportedly even deaths. But Ethiopia is officially going to be inaugurating this $4 billion hydropower dam, set to be the biggest hydropower plant on the continent, and also one of the biggest in the world. Now, the significance of it is what you had just pointed out there. They are hoping, the ambitions of this project is to hopefully generate power for Africa's second most populous nation that can help, of course, electrify a number of Ethiopians that do not have power, but also they're hoping to become a major player in the hydropower export industry, not just regionally, but hopefully globally. And we've actually heard from Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, who suggests it could generate $1 billion a year and also help the country with foreign currency inflows. And a lot of this was really how the country was able to leverage the Ethiopians, right? This has been fully funded by Ethiopians. There were no international funders that were brought into the mix. They were able to get donations and also cash bonds that people were able to buy. And so for many people, this is a rare opportunity of unity for Ethiopians, especially if we take a look at 2026 being a year where they're going to have an election. But of course, as you pointed out there's quite a lot of controversy around this dam.
Okay, let's talk about that, because neighboring countries, Egypt and Sudan, are not happy at all. And I believe they put out a statement saying that the dam's construction actually violated international law. Why so much controversy, Jen?
Right. And this has been in opposition from Egypt and Sudan for years. This is not the first time that we have heard their opposition. There have been many times, though, over the past 14 years of construction that they've tried to get all of these neighboring countries on board to agree with the constructs of this dam. But that has not been able to elicit any sort of agreement. And really, if we take a look at it from the perspective of Egypt, and this map is perfect to show it, Egypt, 80% of Egypt's water needs are met by the Nile. And so the Nile River, of course, is integral to this part of the world, and also really globally if you take a look at it constructively. But also there's concern that some of these downstream players, as you can see there, Egypt and Sudan, potentially could have their own water needs affected if we do in fact see Ethiopia restricting some water downstream. And so as you were pointing out there, they are still opposed to it. So the question is, are there still going to be some more statements that are put out there, and internationally will we hear more?
ነው ሁሉም ጎረቤት ደስ አለ ሁሉም ደስ አለ ሁሉም ጎረቤትም ደስ አለ ሁሉም እኛም ሁሉም ደስ አለ ከልጆች ጀምሮ ከህፃኑ ጀምሮ ደስ አለ
and a proud day, and a proud day.
And at the same time, we take samples after we place.
Ethiopia officially inaugurated Africa's largest hydroelectric dam on Tuesday. The project, dubbed the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, or GERD, aims to provide energy to millions, but widens a rift with downstream nations. At Tuesday's ceremony, Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed addressed what he said were the concerns of those in Sudan and Egypt.
Ethiopia built the Renaissance Dam to prosper and to enlighten the region, never to hurt its brothers. I would like to confirm to you in front of the Ethiopian people that we will never retain your fair share of the water at any point.
Ethiopia is the continent's second most populous nation with over 120 million people. and it sees the $5 billion dam on a tributary of the Nile as central to its economic ambitions. Abiy says the dam will boost access to electricity for the almost half of Ethiopians who had none as recently as 2022. The government says a reservoir the size of Greater London created by the project will provide a steady water supply while limiting floods and drought. But downstream, neighbors have watched the project advance with dread since construction began in 2011. Egypt, which built its own Aswan High Dam on the Nile in the 1960s, fears the GERD could restrict its water supply. Cairo has bitterly opposed the dam from the start, arguing that it violates water treaties and poses an existential threat. Egypt's foreign ministry wrote to the UN Security Council saying the inauguration of the dam violated international law. War-torn Sudan, meanwhile, has joined Egypt's calls for legally binding agreements on the dam's operation, but could also benefit from access to cheap energy.
Now, one of Africa's most controversial projects, the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, has been inaugurated despite concerns raised over its water supply by the downstream countries Egypt and Sudan. Egypt protests Ethiopia's dam inauguration in a letter to the United Nations Security Council. Located on the Blue Nile, this massive hydroelectric dam is expected to double Ethiopia's electricity output, providing power to households and industries across the country. In fact, stretches 1.8 kilometers wide and 475 meters high. The dam is expected to produce more than 5,000 megawatts, doubling Ethiopia's current output, part of which will be exported to neighboring nations. Now, Ethiopia believes that its massive dam will only benefit its more than 100 million people, but also neighboring nations through sustainable water management. The country sees the dam as an opportunity to become Africa's leading electricity exporter.
While building the dam, the amount of water, what they are getting from GERD, especially during the dry months, is 3 to 4 months, 3 to 4 fold what they used to get before the dam. This means, on the expense of the dam we built, they can have their irrigation land 3 to 4 fold. They can increase that because we are providing more water during the dry months. This is a big blessing for them.
And our correspondent Louisa Olani has sent us this report from Lagos in Nigeria. Listen it.
History is being made as Ethiopia inaugurates what is said to be the largest dam by power capacity in Africa. The over 14 years project no doubt will rewrite the Nile's future as it's set to double Ethiopia's electricity, lighting up homes, schools and dreams while exporting power to neighbors. On the other hand, Egypt and Sudan cry foul, fearing their Nile lifeline will dry up. Tensions are high, yet Ethiopia insists this dam is a shared win. Egyptian Foreign Ministry warned on Monday that Egypt would defend and protect the interests of the Egyptian people. For spectators, the coming days, months and years will see how the tension is being managed. From Lagos, Nigeria, Louisa Olani, WION, World is One.